All right, are you ready? This is page 104. We're getting ready to start Module 5, and we always start with some review skills. That's what these pages are. It's just review skills. Some of you will find this extremely easy. So what we're doing here is we're taking images and we're writing them as decimals. There's different ways to think about this. Some kids want to think about this as 100 because there are 100 squares there. You can count 10 times 10 is 100. But other kids like to think about these as tenths, and here's how you can think of it as a tenth. If you ignore the fact that they're 100 squares, you can think about it as 10 rows. This is a column. That's one column, and that's two columns, and there's a total of 10 columns. So the fraction for this one would be 2 out of 10, and 2 out of 10 is 0.2. And that's the whole point. We're trying to write these as decimals. So if a whole column is filled up, you can think about them as tenths. If a whole column isn't filled up, you have to think about it as hundredths. Let's go check out these next four. It says write the decimal represented by the shaded region. So you just count the columns. 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10, 4, 5, 6, 7 columns are shaded out of 10. 7 out of 10 would be 7 in the tenths place, 0.7. 0.7 or 0.7, they're the same thing. You can do the same thing for number 2. We've got 1 tenth, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths. 4 tenths is the same as a 4 in the tenths place, 0.4. Number 3 is going to be a little bit different. While I can count up as tenths, 1 tenth, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths, 5 tenths, it doesn't work now because this isn't a whole column. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to count by tens. So I'm going to rewrite this as 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 51, 52, 53. I've got 53 shaded out of 100. That means I'm going to put a 53 in the hundredths place. So it's going to be 0.53. The last one is simply the whole thing is shaded. If the whole thing is shaded, we're going to write 1 as in one whole. If it's really important to you to put a decimal here, you can put 1.0. Okay, let's move on. So we're now multiplying decimals by powers of 10, and these look a little complicated at first until you recognize how simple they are. Let's go to the example real quick. So we've got 6 and 574 thousandths times 100, but then look at what the answer is. It's all the same digits. Do you notice that we go 6, 5, 7, 4, 6, 5, 7, 4? It's because when you multiply by things like ones and zeros, the digits don't actually change, but the power does. And let me show you what you're looking at here. Notice that there are 2 zeros in 100. And notice that in our answer from our problem here, our decimal has shifted over 2 places. Our decimal was here and it shifted over to the right 2 places. And that's what happens when you multiply by powers of 10, such as 10 or 100 or 1,000. To get your product, you simply move the decimal the number of places to the right as there are zeros. Now if what I just said was confusing, go back to this problem right here. There are 2 zeros, so our decimal is going to shift to the right 2 spaces. So the answer is 657 and 4 tenths. Let's go practice that right here. We've got 1 0, which means our decimal is going to shift to the right once. Our product is 4.9, 4 and 9 tenths. In number 6, we've got 1, 2, 3 zeros, which means our decimal place is going to shift to the right 1, 2, 3 spaces. Now, even though we can't shift it over 3 places unless we annex a 0, that's still the way we do it. So our answer to this one is 25,340. I had to annex a 0 to make that work. Annex a 0 means to put a 0 on the end of it. On 87 times 100, I've got 2 zeros. I need to move my decimal 2 places to the right. The decimal on a whole number is at the end, so I'm going to put a decimal and then I'm going to annex 2 zeros and move it 2 places to the right. 87 times 100 is 8,700. Those get kind of tricky. You might need to watch that twice. That's okay. Let's check out the bottom of the page, words for operations. All we have to do here is write a numeric expression for the word. We're not supposed to solve anything. Never says solve. It doesn't say simplify, it doesn't say solve, it doesn't say find the difference. It just says write a numeric expression. Numeric expression means to write the math problem. 20 decreased by 8 is 20 minus 8. That's all we have to do. We don't have to solve. Number 9 says the quotient of 14 and 7. There's 2 different ways to write this. You could write 14 divided by 7 using a division sign, or you could write it as a fraction. 14 over 7 is the better answer. It's more algebraic. Quotient means divide. I'm going to put a division sign right here. Alright, the difference between 72 and 16. Difference means subtract, so I'm going to do 72 minus 16. And sum means add. Sum of 19 and 3, we're going to do 19 plus 3. If you're wondering, why didn't you solve these, Mr. Smith? It's because the directions didn't ask me to solve. The directions told me to write a numeric expression. Okay, we're going to quickly go to the vocabulary on the next page, and we're going to keep this all in the same video. So I have moved on to page 105 for the vocabulary. These go pretty quick. So we're on page 145. I'm sorry, we're on page 105. And the first set of directions says use the check mark words. It's these. To complete the chart, you may put more than one word in each section. Now there's several answers that could go in each of these. We'll do a few and then we'll probably just move on. So the first one is the division sign. What would you put there? You could write the word, division isn't even one of the options. There's dividend and divisor, but it's not one of the options. You could put operation, because that's what this is. It's an operation sign. And you could put symbol. That's one of our checkmark words. Alright, the next one. This one, I kind of want you to copy my answer. This one's pretty important that we write these in the right order. In a division problem, the answer is called a quotient. So I'd put quotient there. I'm going to draw an arrow to it. The big number in a division problem, the first number, the greatest value is the dividend. The dividend goes first. And this one's called the divisor. I want you to try to memorize that. The dividend gets divided by the divisor, and the result is the quotient. Alright, 450 over 9. What's the best way to describe that? Well, one way to describe that's a rational number. Anything that can be written as a fraction is a rational number. It's also a whole number, but I'm not going to write that because it's not checked. But if it were checked right here, I'd write whole number because 450 divided by 9 is a whole number. But I'm not going to put that because it's not following directions. We could also use numerator as our top word. And denominator as our bottom word. And we could use fraction bar. That's one of our terms, fraction bar. We could use fraction bar. And I want to remind you what fraction means. Fraction bar means to divide. So I'm going to put a division symbol right here. That problem right there is not 450 over 9. It's 450 divided by 9. Alright, so not division. What would go in not division? Well, the opposite of division is multiply, and that's what they're trying to get you to recognize here. If it's not division, then it's multiplication. So I'm going to put multiply. And the answer to a multiplication problem is a product, so I'm going to put product there. So I think we use most of our checkmark words. That may not be perfect, but it's actually really good. The things I want you to memorize on this page are, like the important ones that I want you to memorize are this box. I want you to memorize the words dividend, divisor, and quotient. And this box, I want you to memorize that a fraction is written, that a division problem can be written as a fraction. Alright, a couple new words at the bottom. Understanding vocabulary. It says match the term on the left to the definition on the right. So we've got divide, denominator, quotient, and numerator. And I already talked to you about this matching. The answer to a division problem is the quotient. Oh, I'm gonna color code this. Look at how cool this is going to be. You can't do this, but that's okay. I can do it. This is going to be cool. The top number in a fraction is the numerator. The denominator is the bottom number in a fraction. And divide is to split into equal groups. Make sure you got those four matching set up and memorize those. Good job. We have completed pages 104, 105. You are ready to move on to lesson 5.1.